Well, the Federal House of Representatives has approved President Bola Tinubu's proposal for 500 billion naira to provide palliatives for Nigerians due to the impact of the fuel subsidy removal. The president says 8,000 naira will be paid to 12 million Nigerian families for 6 months to cushion the effects of petrol subsidy removal. Well, Tinubu, on Wednesday, asked the House of Representatives to amend the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act to provide 500 billion naira to fund palliative measures against the impact of fuel subsidy removal. The president is also seeking to extract 500 billion naira from the more than 800 billion naira supplementary budget. Now, former President Muhammadu Buhari introduced the supplementary budget in 2022 for capital projects due to the impact of the floods on farmlands and road infrastructure. Now, the lifespan of the budget has since been extended to till 31st December. Meanwhile, the National Assembly is to get 70 billion in the 2022 supplementary appropriation bill to improve the working conditions of its new members. And if you let us let this sink in, members of the House of Representatives are demanding an upward review of their salaries and allowances following the removal of fuel subsidy and the current economic situation in the country. The demand was the outcome of a meeting that the lawmakers had on the 11th of July after going into an executive session during plenary. The complaints from members arising from salaries and allowances forced the House to go into executive session in order to douse tension. The lawmakers had also demanded from the Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas, the reason for the delay in the payment of their salaries and allowances, causing some of them to resort to loans. Well, I have two guests with me on the show today to talk about this. I have Great Imo, the Great Imo joining me virtually. Good morning to you, Great.
Good morning. Good morning, Harry. My pleasure to be here, and good morning, Nigerians.
Good to have you on the show. Great. Also joining me virtually, I have John Akerele. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning to you, my brother. Good morning to all viewers all over the world.
All right, now, Great Imo is a public affairs commentator. John also is a journalist and a public affairs commentator. All right, gentlemen. So, first of all, what do you think? Let me ask Great now. Great, you know that our lawmakers are working so hard. So what do you say to the request that they are making, 70 billion, to help improve their working conditions as against 8,000 naira per month for 6 months to 12 million Nigerian families? What do you make of that?
Well, sometimes you are minded to say that the only thing our leaders, people who vie for offices, those who want to lead, sometimes appears the motivation is the material things that comes from it. Because leaders are pathfinders. If my knowledge of what leadership is sounds very correct, leaders are supposed to be pathfinders, people who know where society should be going, people who create the pathway and lead others into that future. But in our own case, it appears we're consistently, generation after generation, and we've been finding people who just want to get into power just for the pleasure of being in government and to get the benefit that accrues thereof. Hence, it is not about the society, it's not about the people. And we have had this argument severally. I remember about 2016 on Television Continental, when the social investment program was being introduced, we had in-depth analysis of some of the things they wanted to do. And I talked about how these things were just simply offering programs that had no depth that can lead Nigeria out of economic quagmire. Hence, as much as I'm not against, conditional cash transfers of 8,000 to the poorest, but you can see that less than 500 people sitting in the National Assembly are using just this opportunity to demand for 70 billion. You do the mathematics. You know what each individual will get at the expense of 200 and something million people. I mean, even among those who are said to be well off in the society right now, a lot of people are finding it difficult. People who fill their vehicles or who fill the tank of their vehicle with about 50,000 naira, and some of them on salaries of 100,000 or 150,000. I mean, considering the economic hardship that Nigerians are going through now, our leaders must know that leadership is about sacrifice. Leadership is about finding solutions to societal problems. I will give you an example. For example, in Kenya, Ruto had also been given the same offer. And the executive and those in government in Kenya, the guys, rather than accept it, said, look, at this point, we'll rather raise the pay of workers than raise the pay of leaders, so that the resources that is available can percolate and get to more people than having the fewer people up there, just consume everything. And this is how leaders think. In this country, in fact, the problem is even that the leaders here don't even have a vision. They don't have a grip. When you hear of these things, they are just platitude, talkingisms, with no, in-depth analysis of how it leads us from point one to point A. It's just, oh, this is what Buhari was doing for the last 8 years, and the more we did it, the more inflation we have. Now we want to spend another 500 billion that is not targeted at growth, at productivity, at increasing capacity for what? Indigenous growth, indigenous productivity. And at the end of the day, we are going to have inflation, especially down that you are giving to the legislators. That means the executive, we don't even know what they will be getting, because after giving to the legislators and giving some trickles to 12 million people, then we'll wait for what the executive will be getting for this, even without announcing it to us.
What's your take on this? Let's start with that. 70 billion for less than 500 people, 800 monthly for 6 months to 12 million families, not individuals, families.
I think the first thing we should look at is to even break down this money monthly. What can 8,000 naira do for you monthly? So let's take an artisan who lives in Ikorodu, who apply from Ikorodu to K2 every day for 1 month. 500 to go, 500 to come, 8,000 naira in a day, only on transport to K2 from Ikorodu. That would take him just 8 days. Now, the remaining 22 days in the month, where do you think he will get the money to transport himself? So these are some of the things we should look at. With 8,000 naira, are you sure you can have good food products from the market with 8,000 naira? With 8,000 naira, can you say that you can fuel the tank of your car? With 8,000 naira, can you say that a family of 5 can have good balanced diet? Now, these are questions that people should answer themselves. Look at it. We have trader money. What is the productivity effect of trader money? Did it increase the buying power of the populace? The answer is no. That was on one angle. On the other angle, it's only in Nigeria that the political leaders, the elected leaders, earn more at the expense of the people. I would have expected this administration. 8,000 naira to 12 million families is good. But I would have expected a slash of by 50% all across board of all elected officials and political appointees. And let's see how much we will recoup alone from that department and so we can plunge that back into
Well,
social investment for our people.
well, you know that lawmakers. Sorry to interrupt you. Lawmakers will always argue that their salary isn't much. People always talk about them earning humongous salary, but it's really not much. You know, that's the argument they will tell you. But we know that. Well, I don't know if they have ever stated how much it is that they earn. The one person that tried to do so left the assembly. That's Senator Shehu Sani, and he never made it back. You know, but we don't know how much they earn. But we know that money comes in from other projects and committees that they get to head and all of that. Now, should they put it out there that this is how much they earn? We know how much a civil servant earns. We know how much those under the IPPIS earn based on grade level. Shouldn't Nigerians know how much the president earns in terms of salaries? And I mean, we know what the budget is, but shouldn't we know how much they all earn?
Thank you, my brother. I think our president-elect, sitting president today, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is an extremely wealthy man. He does not need Nigerians' money. That is some people's arguments. I would have accepted him to say that he will not take any form of salary that comes to this office. Why? Because he has enough to spend. And any other person coming on board should also do that sacrifice that they want to serve the people and not about the gains and the largesse that comes. They want to forgo the largesse. Then will I know that truly they are indeed ready to serve Nigerians. That's on one hand. On the other hand, what is the data or the criteria to select these 12 million? Don't forget that the number of poor Nigerians rose to over 100 million. I think 133 million, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if out of 133, you are picking 12 million, what is the data? What is the criteria for selection of these 12 million? It means you have over 18 million people still having this harsh effect of subsidy removal. And the economic reality is on all of them. Now, will this 8,000 get to these people as well? That's questions to be asked. What is the assurance that this 8,000 will even get to the poorest of the poorest? If you check the issue of trade money, we all know how it went down the drain. Okay? If you check the conditional cash transfer, it got to a point they were sharing cash by hand. How did that go to? So these are questions that are looking for answers, begging for answers, not just the
All
money.
right. Well, I can barely hear you. I do hope they will increase the volume of this so I can hear you better. Now, let me come to Great now. Great. They say poorest of the poor. John has, touched on that a bit. We know that a lot of Nigerians are poor, really. And if you want to talk about the poorest of the poor, then we'll be looking at those in hinterlands, those in, the villages that barely have electricity, that barely have access to mobile network, that barely have access to banks. So if the poorest of the poor are unbanked, and they have said these monies will be transferred to them into their accounts, what's the magic? How are they going to do that? Or are they going to register them? Are they going to go to a local government? I don't know. Help me out here. All right. Great. You might need to pause a bit. Your mic is not on at the moment, so I can't hear you. I don't want to miss out on anything you're saying this morning. Go ahead now.
I hope it's not from your own end.
Oh, well, I still can't hear you. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. We'll try and fix that if it's from over here. But if it's not, we'd like you to unmute your microphone. Can you say?
My microphone is on.
All right, so I still can't hear you, but we'll find a way to fix that so we can get your take on this. John, you might need to respond while we wait for the technicians to fix great audio quality.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Good. I think for me, the poorest of the poor, what is the criteria? How do you know this is the poorest of the poor? Do you visit them in their houses? Do you check their bank account through the DVA? How do you rate them? And if they say to you that these set of people are only in the northern part of the country, that is a fallacy and that's a lie. Because the whole of the north does not have up to 100 million people. Not even 50 million people in the whole of the north. So that means that if you have over 100 million people that are poor, that live below $1 a day, I think our government officials from the local government, the state level, to the federal should be more committed, in terms of releasing enough money from their salaries. Bonuses and allowances should be slashed. And that's when I can know that yes, indeed, we have the renewal.
You're talking.
If that is not done, some people have this fear. And this is the fear that these funds will only go to APC members.
Okay.
Okay? Because they feel like if you are not an APC member, you cannot get this fund. So the question is, will there be a website created again to get people's data? If yes, how will this conditional cash transfer get to the people? What is the criteria for selection? Will it only go to some set of people or not? Will it go to everybody or not? These are questions that we have to answer. But we cannot answer these questions because we don't have the data on ground. And for us as a people, we should work as a country that data for us is important. Now, let me give you an example. How to get this thing done is very simple. Lagos, for example, started what we call LASRA, Lagos State Resident Registration, whatever. Now, it shows that if you are registered in Lagos, you can be captured according to your local government. In your local government, according to your CDA. In your CDA, according to your ward. In your ward, according to your street. In your street, according to your number of your house. Can you see how that trickles down from the state to your house? Which means that if you have all the data, you have number of unemployed people, you have number of educated ones, you have number of those in secondary school, you have number of those out of secondary school. All of this data would have been able to help us in dispensing all of our economic dividends and democratic dividends to our people. In the sense that you know the number of people that are unemployed, the number of people that are graduates, the number of people that are in school, the number of the aged that we have. And with that, you can now dispense state resources according to the palliative that you want to give to them. But in this case, how will you select the 12 million poor of the poorest in Nigeria? Still questions to be answered.
All right. So if I beg your pardon, if Great is still with us.
Yeah.
Oh, great, fantastic! I can hear you better now. Now,
very much. The microphone was always on here. I guess there were some issues at the audio in the studio.
Oh well. We do apologize.
You're welcome.
Go ahead with your thoughts.
You were talking about, come again, I want you to refresh so that I'm able to answer because my
I think the question I asked was, well, I can't recall exactly now, but I think I asked something related to the unbanked.
The unbanked. Okay. Now, this is the issue. Particularly, I have an experience. When the trader money issue came up, I wanted to participate as a leader in my own community. I was based in Lagos, and I took the pain to actually travel down to the east so that we don't sit and complain. I went to mobilize my community. I got farmers and local people. I actually bought a bank, a particular bank from the state capital to my community, to my village, to my house. I rented generators, they brought computers, brought scanners. I called the photographer, set up a bank opening structure in my house. Where they say the opening balance was 1,500. My initial target was to register 100 people. I deposited 50,000, which is 5,500, in agreement that once the account is opened, whenever they get a transfer, the remaining balance can be subtracted. In fact, I ended up registering 173 people and more were pushing. And the funds which I had made available for the account opening for these people in my community were already exhausted. Then this happened for 2-3 days. I was feeding these bankers. Not only was I feeding these bankers, I was also I engaged the trader money people. I went to look for them in the state capital, literally lobbying, if that is what it means. Brought them, paid for a bus that also brought them after I've dealt with the bankers to come and capture people in my community. Those who had accounts already and those who knew accounts were open. Even after people got their alerts, which now shows that they have a BVN, even after I have captured those in my community, I have evidence there are people in my community today that can tell you that yes, I did all of this till tomorrow. After they were captured with what they call trader money devices, up to this moment, none of them got a kobo. So what did they do? They simply harvested that data, and whatever they use it for, nobody can tell. In fact, at the time in my community, some people thought this was you coming back to do politics with them. This is the unfortunate thing. You say, I'm telling you how much effort I made. We have seen senators and House of Representatives members complain even over a job that federal government has given. So I'm afraid this may be another job for the boys. 500 billion for political associates. They will find themselves around this money, and the next thing they clap for themselves, and the rest will keep suffering. Honestly, because it has happened over and over and over again. That was why in 2016 I argued that instead of giving 500 billion on conditional cash transfer, maybe increasing inflation, why don't we do counterpart funding, match these resources with existing Nigerian companies that are productive, and what distribute them evenly. Even we can start with 109 senatorial districts where we have industrial clusters where productive companies can be matched with funds. They can engage more number of people who will produce, who will feed their families, earn salary, and when productivity increases, we sell products and reduce poverty at the same time, reducing the importation and helping our currency. These things are policy mismatch. They are not well thought through. They are simply platitudes, facades, and tokenisms that lack, gravity for solving social problems.
Oh my. Well, first of all, I must say your efforts were, good. Unfortunately, it didn't yield the desired results, but that was a good one. That was a good one. So that basically just tells us that even in this case now, it's we might see a repeat where monies will not even get to those that need it, or monies will go to a particular set of people, and the rest of the population will continue to wallow in poverty. That seems to be what honestly, right now. But it's even for a 6-month period. What do you think will happen after 6 months?
Well, the more things change, the more they remain the same in Nigeria. The more things change, the more they remain the same. In fact, I'm afraid with the news coming in now, there is going to be an increase in school fees, even at the federal universities and maybe state universities. In the next 3 months, we are going to see the real effects of this subsidy removal, and now rather than maybe subsidize education, quality education, I don't mean subsidize certificate collection, whereby we need to maybe unleash the education sector. We need to create technical colleges that can give quick capacity for Nigerians to participate in building the economic prosperity for themselves and for the nation. We need more technical colleges. We need to fund them possibly at every level, possibly in every local government. We need to have 2 or 3 where people are taught maybe plumbing skills, welding skills, wooden skills, and all manner, those kind that can, when you empower them to engage in certain level of economic activity, those that can also enable some of them, especially engage. For example, there are kinds of road construction where you need people who have plumbing skills, people who are normal medicine people who can do road tiling at a skill, so that the resources we are spending in infrastructure is percolating to the communities. Because after these 6 months, without any productivity matched with resources spent, you are going to have inflation. And you are going to throw more people. I argued this in 2016 with Mr. Laolu Akonde, who was the essay to the vice president. We were on radio, on television, Continental. I was in Lagos, he was in Abuja. I argued this thing. I said, I've never seen where such cash transfers, remove people out of poverty. Rather, it creates inflation. What takes people out of poverty is engaging them in economic productivity, because it is through productivity that the nation's economy grows, that you engage more hands and your resources find its value. Because money means for measurement of value. When citizens are not creating value, you are creating poverty. So how do you find citizens? Engage citizens in productive ventures. If you spend resources in empowering people through education, in engaging them in productive venture, especially using indigenous materials, whereby companies that are set up, they find raw materials that are available in those localities, that almost evenly and in quick succession, where you use existing companies and you match some funding, where you have targeted employment quota for every of these companies that the Nigerian government will be funding. Look at what is happening in Russia. Heavily sanctioned. Even after being sanctioned, rather than the economy go down, the economy grows stronger, their currency went stronger, the companies that were left, the indigenous capacities quickly took them over, and they were given intervention for productivity, not cash transfer. These things are not well thought after. These are simply political, talks that are meant to massage the ego. Our leaders have become victims of their own circumstances and their sycophants. So policies are not well thought after. Everyone will just want to imprison for the men 6 months. After 6 months, maybe after the tribunal case, we'll find other ways to continue. These are some of the things I see.
Now, shouldn't economic experts be consulted before these measures are taken? John, now, don't you think some economic experts should have been consulted, and then there will be a workable template to effectively deliver or save Nigerians from the effects of subsidy removal?
Okay, thank you. I think for me, we have good brains in Nigeria, and we have people with good minds who want to even offer their services pro bono. The great, can you please mute your mic? I'm getting sound back from here. Thank you. So I think for us, we have people who are doing well, just like the greats, But most importantly, the country and the style of leadership, always frustrate this kind of efforts. And once these efforts are frustrated, more people will not even be motivated to even go ahead in doing their own bits to make Nigeria a better place. Okay? So if you look at it, people that have even been given advices, that have been given their services in order to make Nigeria better, did the government show to you that they have been listening ear to ear? Now, when they come up with investigations and if they come up with reports, how many of these reports, is being adopted and implemented? How many of them? Because if you ask yourself this question, how come that we keep talking of promises when you want to campaign? I will build road, I will build infrastructure. Since I've been giving birth to till now, that is still the same line of campaign. I will build road, there will be infrastructure, there will be a social investment. The same campaign promises till now, and nothing has changed. Rather, has even grown worse. Okay, so people will want to give their services, economic services, but I think that this is not even about people now. It's about the political class. Having this mindset is a mindset, and you cannot take it out of it. And this is what they do. When it's time for campaign, they come and give you a bag of rice, give you 5,000 naira. So look at the difference. Conditional transfer, 8,000. When you go and vote for them, 5,000. Can you see that just a bit value added to the voters' money? And that has always been the thing. But this, just like the great said, these are not things that can really take us out of poverty.
Yeah.
Now, let me give you one case study that you will really see that all of us can relate to. Feed the nation, Operation Feed the Nation. In this case, not even feed the nation, feed your working class. So let's take a state of Lagos as a case study. If Lagos State government will say, we want to feed all of our staffs one food a day while they are in the office, Monday through Friday, and they'll feed all public schools, secondary, primary, and university, one meal a day while these children are in school. Do you know the quantum of joy that will create all across the states? Because it means that you are virtually feeding everybody. Now, do you know the chain that comes in that kind of system? Why? Because you have to employ cooks, chefs, all right, butchers who will kill your animals. In fact, farm produce will largely be consumed. And in that case, you see that you are bringing in the oil that can engineer the system of the society. That will bring more about production, that will bring productivity, more people will earn, because from their services they render as a cook, they earn. These children who go to school will have good mental capacity. Why? Because they are eating good food, and they will be able to develop well in class. They have more concentration. So it means that you have better students come out from your primary and secondary school into university. You have better working capacity, working staffs, workforce, better workforce. Why? Because they are not thinking of food to eat. Productivity will be on the increase. More jobs will be created. There will be more money that will flow in the economy, and your GDP will be on the increase. But it's a shame that all of our people, you give them advice, they don't listen to your advice. They always see it from the angle of you are criticizing them because you are not the party in power. But let's look at criticism in another way. If we want the country to be better, that's why people like us, people like the great, will always come and say, this is what I think we should do. We're not saying you should give the contract to us, no. But let's have this thing done. Once it is done, you will see that the length and breadth of the society will have a sigh of relief. Let me ask you a question. How come is it that posters get to the interiors of the interiors? I'm sure when the great went back to his village, he saw posters on the wall, even in his own house. But how come when it comes to dividends of democracy,
the campaign ones, right?
He doesn't get to these people in the village?
Go ahead. I was just emphasizing that the campaign, those posters that they put to campaign, that's what you mean, right?
Yes. Posters get to the interior, get to the villages, get to the farmlands. All right? But when it comes to dividend of democracy, when it comes to some of this, transfer, it doesn't get to the villagers. Now, let me ask you a question. Who is in charge of pasting of posters in your village? Nobody knows. You wake up, you see posters in the village. But when it comes to sharing of palliatives, it is locked up somewhere in the factory. And somebody is coming to tell you that they only share it when it is a birthday. The question is it a thing for your birthday, or it's something that Nigerians are entitled to as a palliative for them? So until we get to that point where people at the grassroots, people at the depth of poverty, the poor masses, the poor Nigerians, will have a direct impact of governance, then and then can we say, yes, we really have a country we can call our own. But for now, I think we are still playing.
And you have to end with that we did play. All right, great. Now, let me come to you, great. Let's look at the president declaring a state of emergency on agriculture. He said he is declaring a state of emergency, and he intends to give out to make 500,000 hectares of land available for farmers to farm, and they're giving out grains, fertilizers to farm families and all of that. And then we'll also have the police protects the farmlands for at least a year so crops can grow. I can see John laughing. Great. What's your take on that one? Will that help in any way to cushion the effect of the removal of subsidy? All right, now I can't hear you. Okay.
I love the idea of
Go ahead.
Declaring state of emergency in agriculture, because I know, for example, number one, a nation start growing by feeding itself. A nation start growing by making good what it produces, what is available to it. After all, even when God puts us here, put us here, our DNA is unique to the kind of food that we have within our location. All we need to do was to make something good out of it. So I love the idea of declaring emergency in agriculture because it's long overdue. Because I also believe that, for example, for many of the food crops that we have available here, their turnover time is 10 months, maybe 11 months. Cassava, beans, yam, rice, and in doing that, the question you asked earlier when John was answering was about data. Yeah, what is driving this emergency? Is it driven by data? What are the data we're looking about here? How many tons of rice do we need? How many tons of beans do we need? How many tons of yam do we need? How many tons of vegetable? When you have calculated these indigenous products that we can produce in Nigeria, that at least can suffice in the absence of imported materials, we will now come around saying, where can we get them produced? Which soils in different locations of Nigeria can be, that this crop suitable? To have soil sample, you need to have geographic, you need to have what they call water resources deployment, that for irrigation and this is off-season planting and all of those things. You need to know some of those that you need to turn over. There needs to be 2 times in a year, 3 times turnover to achieve quantum you require. You need to talk about it. You need to, because it's not just you give fertilizer, you give them, politicians hijack them, go and resell it to rural farmers at a very high cost. When you want to share this, we need to have a clear roadmap, because what we have had in the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks, honestly, is just policy pronouncements. We don't see roadmap. Hey, we remove subsidy. When you remove subsidy, we didn't see roadmap to cushioning the effect. Oh, we give this a student loan. When you ask questions, you begin to discover that the pre-qualification for the student loan, it was laughable. Oh, we are going to insecurity. More people have died in Benue. We don't just want policy statements that are what tokenisms. We want to see in this emergency we are declaring, we are going to be producing 1 million metric tons of maize from the Benue belt. We'll be producing 1 million metric tons of rice from maybe Abakaliki belt. So. Based according to soil samples and establish that. That is why sometimes I'm also angry that we have institutions in Nigeria that we spending billions and billions and billions over the years. They are not giving us this in outcome. Ministries that are supposed to be generating data that are supposed to make them nationally available. Even when you go on website, you are supposed to find out where can you plant maize in Nigeria and it will do very well. The data will appear. We have Ministry of Mines and Steel where you are supposed to collect data. Mineral resources available in different locations. For example, once I was in Ministry of, there is about 20 states with bauxite, which they have natural capacity or tendency to produce cement. Yet you are still doing monopoly. One person is producing 70 million people and growing population, where you can license 20 states to partner with local and foreign investors to begin to produce cement, even at a very small capacity, so that the cost of cement can come down to around 1,500 euros. This is the cost of housing. So doing this agriculture, I like the arrangement, I like the statement emergency, but where is the data and the structure that will drive the delivery? That is part of what I'm asking. We have removed subsidy. What is the data and structure to drive the cushioning? Without all of these things, it just facets isn't lacking, any critical ideas.
All right, thank you very much. Great, John. You were once a farmer. I don't know if you're still into it. What do you make of the policy?
I think for me, being at the forefront of criticizing the government when it comes to agricultural policies, I think this is long overdue.
Okay.
Long overdue. Long overdue in the sense that we need to have a matching order. The federal government does not have a land, as long as I'm concerned. The land belongs to the state government. So if you have 36 governors, can you give a matching order to your 36 governors? Anything that can grow well in your own state, please go ahead and produce. Okay? Now, let's also look at this area. If you're saying you're making a state of emergency, we have had this kind of statement before now. Where did it lead us to? That's the question. So if you are giving the same statement now, farmers who knew what happened then will just be like, the same talk is coming on again. After that, will there be a political will of government to say we want to push this agenda to the latter? Will there be monitoring and implementation to the latter of all these policies? Not only should we just make headlines, but the fact that people say, let me say something to you. The government is doing that people at the lowest of the lowest do not feel the effect. We are just playing. So for me, it's a good statement, but beyond the statement, I want to see we have improved kind of farming. I want to see that the people in charge of weather forecast, works in line with the State Ministry of Agriculture in terms of projections, forecastings, weather. What are the plants or the strain of plants that we can plant that can withstand, this kind of flood or erosion that is to come, or fall that is to come? I think not only Nigeria is having this issue of flooding or erosion, in other countries too. And if we even check their farmlands are still there. What do? They get a particular strain of a seedling that can withstand that pressure. And once the water, subsidize, the plants can grow. Now, there are some other farm produce that even need much water, swampy area, for them to even germinate. So some of these things can be used to their advantage instead of seeing it as a disadvantage. So in a case where you have flooding, you have too much of water, you can take some of this water, save in a dam to generate power. The remaining one can be distributed in your distribution channel to make sure that other farmlands can be irrigated, because it's not the same rainfall all across the length and breadth of Nigeria. So is there a way of transporting water from one place to another place through a channel that can help irrigation? That's one. On the other hand, who are the real farmers?
Let's make this quick so we can.
Farmers. Last administration said they empowered over 1 million farmers. Please, let's do the mathematics here. If you empower over 1 million farmers, and each of these farmers cultivates, let's say 1 acre of land, which is about 6 plots, 1 acre of land, it means that you have 6 million acres of land. 6 million times 6, that gives you about 36 million plots of land cultivated of food. We should not be talking about food scarcity. We should not be talking about food inflation. We should not be talking about food insecurity.
No, we know we still battle with the issue of insecurity. We know we are still battling with the issue of insecurity. So that's on one side.
Wait, are you battling with the issue of insecurity again in Kebbi State? Are you battling with the issue of insecurity in Ibadan or your state? Are you battling with the issue of insecurity in Ogun State? There are some other states that do not have this pocket of incidents or cases of violence. And that's what I'm saying to you is, let's move from this traditional way of agriculture. Go to other countries. There are some who plant fruit. They plant strawberries. not
right
even
then.
till the ground. And so we should look at ways of doing modern agriculture that everybody, every state or federation should be planting something in
All
terms
right
of
then.
food.
Thank you very much,
And
John.
that and then can we say we are serious?
All right then. Thank you very much, John. But we're going to another topic now. I like the both of you, John Akirili and Great Imo, to stay with me on this one, and then Victor Ateba will join us in this next conversation. Now, the State Security Service (SSS) says it has charged Godwin Emefiele, the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN), to court. A Federal Capital Territory High Court had ordered the DSS to charge Emefiele to court if they have criminal allegations against him. Hamza Muazu, the presiding judge, asked the service to release the former governor, the former CBN governor, on bail if he's not taken to a competent court within 1 week. Now, in a statement on Thursday, Peter Afunaya, spokesperson of the DSS, said the decision to charge Emefiele was in compliance with the court order, and the DSS assured the public of professionalism, justice, and fairness in handling the matter and in the discharge of its duties. Now, the secret police, however, failed to state the charges filed against Emefiele. On June 9, President Bola Tinubu suspended the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, and asked him to transfer his responsibilities to Folashodun Adebisi Shonubi, who is the Deputy Governor Operations Directorate. Now, the day after, DSS announced that Emefiele was in custody for some investigative reasons. Now, we haven't been told exactly what the investigations found, what they found during the investigations. Now, if we were told that he was arrested, don't you think that we should have been told what was found, John?
Thank you for that question. I think for me, Nigeria has become a place where when it comes to your turn, you can punish those who you feel have not supported you. And we've seen it in past administrations. So in the case of Emefiele, let's go back before the election. There was, a new money, new currency, old currency can no longer be tenable and all of that back and forth. And we can hear the response of the president today. So he feels, some people have the opinion that he feels like now that he's the president, he can always go back and question Emefiele, since he has the prerogative power as the president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. But on the other hand, some people also feel this way. And how do they feel? They feel like if Emefiele has questions to answer, he's not above the law. He should be invited. And once he's invited, he should be charged to court. And then they can take up the case from there. Some people are also of the opinion, and they feel like if you say Emefiele is having a problem, okay, and he's been invited by DSS to answer some questions because there's some money, don't also forget the issue of stamp duty that runs into millions of naira, if not billions, okay? And those ones also have question mark on it. So there are so many issues hanging around him as a person. Now that he has stepped aside from he should be able to, answer those questions. But on the other hand, the government also should be able to be transparent in their own dealings with him, so that it is not being seen as a kind of witch hunting. That if you are not on our own to power, we'll deal with you mercilessly. The same also goes with that of power. Power also, EFCC chairman also is also having the same issue. So if there's a case against them, let them be charged to court and let justice be served to everybody. And that's the only way we can move on as a nation.
All right then, let me bring Victor into this conversation now. Victor, I'll tell you, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me.
And I understand that you've been waiting for a long time to get into the conversation. We do apologize for keeping you on for that long. Now, let us know, is this witch hunting? Does this appear like witch hunting to you?
Just to give a background to what your guest earlier said, government after government always have a scapegoat for someone who didn't play along to their card. You recall the case of Mago. Mago till now, we are yet to find out the outcome of the investigation, and it's a pity, or it's pitiful as a country that we arrest before investigation commences. In a developed country, you must have gathered your investigation, tender before the court of law, and you go and the court agrees and gives you the permission to go and arrest this person. Yes, there's a lot of issues against the person of the former CBN governor, Governor Emefiele, stating a lot of stamp duty, misappropriation of funds, some money being mismanaged and all that. Fine, it is understandable, but this is media trial. You should have done your due diligence and just not because. What if Tinubu had not suspended him? Would they have come out to pick him up? And also, you recall that at one point during the last administration, there was this back and forth between the DSS trying to pick him up and the presidency, shielding him from being arrested.
Oh,
so
yes.
there's a lot of witch hunting. So to though, yes, this court. Must it always be like the court has to give directive that you have to charge him to court or has to pass a due process before the right thing is done? For me, it's really embarrassing, and I think it's high time that our security agencies need to do their due diligence and do the right thing before coming on air and embarrassing ourselves as a country as if we know what we're doing. We don't know what we're doing. I need to say.
All right. I beg your pardon. Great, Imo. If you're still with us, are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, this seems like the first time in a long time that the courts will give an order to the DSS, an organization like the DSS, and they will comply. Should we be happy that things are changing for the better? And without the court order, what would they? Wouldn't they have charged him to court without the court order? Because
what is playing out now further exposes the weakness of our institutions. Honestly, even as a non-starter in governance, I know that some of the things I see, they make me wonder if those who are ruling Nigeria actually understand the act of governance. The institution of DSS is so large, is so staffed that you didn't need the order of court to have known the corruption going on in CBN, because this institution is such that it's supposed to be embedded in every aspect of our national governance. Every institution of governance in Nigeria is supposed to have the presence of the personnel who are keeping daily track of the activities going on in these institutions, banking institutions, be the presidency, legislature. The reason why we keep engaging more personnel in the DSS and other agencies of government, financial reporting institution, NFIU, and the rest of them, is because we need somebody to have gone and pick up one citizen and keep him somewhere and start telling us you're investigating. That sounds so. I don't want to use. I'm just being careful here. This is embarrassing. It's very embarrassing. DSS. I don't know what that institution have done to a caricature, a political baggage carrier. Look, in February when Emefiele was supposed to be arrested, it looked like he was being shielded by the presidency, as my colleagues have said. That tells you that institution has fallen under the whims and caprices of politicians. A man who was accused of sponsoring terrorism, a crime so heinous that if such was happening, the DSS, which is supposed to be embedded in the Central Bank of Nigeria, in INEC and other institutions of Nigeria, are supposed to have picked up all of this and concluded this investigation before arresting. It took a judge, a high court judge, to remind DSS that you need to take a man you have arrested for a crime to court. That is a national embarrassment. And let me tell you, unlike the police, DSS is supposed to be the high-rate security agency, not like Google Defense, what we call them, civil defense. We used to call them Google Defense those days, or Boy Scouts. I mean, the minimal things that even the lowest of countries can handle here, it looks difficult. Why are we paying billions maintaining this personnel? When ordinary investigation, institution that is embedded in other institutions that are supposed to have records of every governance activity and personnel and things happening in and around this country, they are waiting 3 weeks after they put a man in a cooler to come and bring him to court, and court has to remind him. In fact, let me tell you, it's nothing but an embarrassment. Nobody's saying Emefiele is clean or not, and just not Emefiele alone. I mean, this is why we cannot account for the number of crude going out of this country. Today, you are talking Emefiele. Do you know the corruption that happened in NPC in the last 24 years? That place is a cesspit of corruption. Many carriers started wearing suits, jumping up and down to impress the new president. We need to also investigate NPC if DSS was not doing their job. All these national institutions have DSS embedded in them. Their day-to-day activities are supposed to be recorded. Instead of them to be doing their jobs, some of them are following politicians and business people up and down with their shotguns in their pocket while Nigeria is going down the drain. It is embarrassing.
All right, and it's annoying, and I can feel your passion there. John, let me come to you now, John Akirele. Now,
I'm here.
Isn't it troubling that with all the investigations that the DSS has done, albeit they started investigation after arrest, but now they are charging to court, but we still don't know what they are charging him for. They haven't told Nigerians that, oh, this and that are the allegations leveled against him.
That is why they are also leaving a gap for people to speculate. And I think the onus is on all governmental agencies to understand that when you're dealing with the public, you don't leave a gap. Because once you leave the gap, they will fill in the gap. And once they fill in the gap, they will say what you don't intend to see. And start doing damage control, press release up and down. I think for us, it should be clear and straightforward. If you have been invited, DSS are not killers, they are not devil. So if you are being invited, it means that there's something that they need to ask you questions about. And if you know that you can go to their office and answer your. In a case where people, they don't see the DSS even as an institution that is doing due diligence rather than political way. So for me, I think what they ought to have done is to bring out a statement, a clear statement. We are, arraigning the person of God on this 3-count charge. 1, inappropriation of funds, misappropriation of funds. 2, embezzlement of stamp duty. 3, and you just highlight all of the reasons why you have invited him and why he's under prosecution or under investigation. And if people want to ask, well, do you know that you have stated clearly these are the reasons why he's been invited? That also will say to you that you have been a transparent institution of government, and that you are following the due process, the due diligence, the due way of doing things. Not like in Nigeria. Sorry to say, we don't get things right. We don't. Maybe when Nigerians get outside the shores of the country, they get it right. But right there in the country, we don't get it right. We need them to come and tell us what to do, how to do it, and it's such a pain. And it's even embarrassing that if DSS, of such caliber can go that low, because I see them lowering the standard of the institution at the detriment of another. We have a president today. Former President Buhari was there in office, but now he cannot control the DSS the way he used to. So they should understand that president will come, president will go, but the institution remains stagnant, remains the same. And so they must know that the institution supersede the president, and they should uphold the tenets of this institution by taking things not because they are your political enemies, but because they have been found wanting, and then they should follow due process in terms of investigation, in terms of sending them to court and all of that. Then can we all see that this is not a political witch hunt. We are not saying that Godwin Emefiele is a saint. We are not saying that does not have baggages and causes to be answered. But what we are saying is let Nigerians be on the know. Let all Nigerians, be in white and black to know that this is why they are saying. And so nobody will raise this issue of political witch hunting against Emefiele and Obawa. If you have an issue against him, invite him, have your investigations done, arrange him to court within 24 hours, and let the court take the case from there. And then can we say, yes, we are working on the right path.
All right, then. Thank you very much, John. Let me come back to you, Victor Atere. Well, there was this talk of terrorism charges against Emefiele. That just filtered in, and Nigerians had to play with that for a bit. And one would imagine that if there was truly, if they have found evidence that he was financing terrorists in Nigeria, shouldn't they have acted a lot more swiftly? Now, that is on one side. I would like you to marry that to the fact that security agencies in Nigeria, the DSS in particular now, they seem to make saints out of alleged wrongdoers. Let me use that word. It's a lighter word. They seem to make saints out of wrongdoers by holding them back, without charging them to court, without making known things that you have findings of your investigations, to the point where Nigerians start to say, "Oh, let this person go. You are just victimizing this person." And that seems to be what is happening now. It seems to be what is happening with Emefiele, because now there is the talk of, because he brought out policies that hampered the free flow of the electoral process, especially for the APC, and now Nigerians are saying that might be the reason why he's been treated the way he's treated. Why do we do that?
You see, in your question, you already respond to some things I intend to say. Now, how would you justify? How would you justify? Somebody of that high caliber, and you come up with a very weighty allegation stating that charging of terrorism. Do you know what that is? Do you know what terrorism is? Charging for terrorism, that's felony, and that is punishable by death in our law. You understand? So now you're coming against the state to say you're working against the state, working for the state institution, and financing a terrorist group against your state. So that is very weighty. So you come out to say you're trying this person. Now the question is, this man is a public officer, and you all Nigerians the least information to say, listen, on this allegation, yes, some will say yes, not everything for public consumption. I can agree with that. However, you are to give us a detailed statement stating these are the reasons why we have to go after him. Now, DSS, for me, I think they are doing the work of the police. This should be, I think we have detectives, we have departments who handle these things. We have the EFCC who handles financial misappropriation in our society. We live in a society where criminals even proving a sitting governor, stashing dollars in his pocket. And up to now, there's speculation that he's been nominated for ministerial position. So, but yes, everybody would believe. Everybody would think, because this guy worked against your government or worked against you in the last, just completed the election. That's why you're coming after him first to make him as a scapegoat. You understand? We have the case of Bawa there, which is here to charge to court. So, we keep falling into our security agencies, and of course our government institutions keep falling the same trap. And the trap is simple. Stating you try people, you arrest people before trial, before occasion. You keep someone against the stipulated law. Given time. Given time and say, okay, you know what, we're investigating. And know what have you been doing for years? What have you been doing for months? So you just arrest somebody without having your findings? That is even breach of human right.
All right.
That's breach of his right. So you just treat him as a common criminal, even though there's speculation. Like I said, nobody's saying is simple. All what we're saying is just speculation. There is no detailed, I repeat, no detailed information being signed, addressed, and of course communicated to Nigerians by DSS, stating that on this count, we're charging this person, and for that reason we're keeping him. It's just yes, we heard it was financed. We heard, alleged. We can't keep living on rumors. Nigerians intelligence to have one institution of government just dazzle up and down, and all for what? All for being used as a political tools to go after opponents. That's what DSS is possible to do. And I'll tell you, like what Mr. John said earlier, it's sad that because a president will come and go, but whatever you do to the institution, of course you do to the country, and of course it goes to show how deteriorating the system will live for generations to come.
All right, I must say a very big thank you to you gentlemen for staying with me on the program today. A big thanks to Great Imo, John Akirile, and Victor Atewe. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so now let's go to business. Let's take a look at what's happening in the world of business. Just a few stories from the business arena. From business, we have the National Bureau of Statistics Capital Importation Report for the first quarter of 2023 has shown that foreign investment in the manufacturing sector dropped by 35%, and that's from $392.5 million in the fourth quarter of 2022 to $256 million in the first quarter of 2022. According to the report, the total capital importation into Nigeria in the first quarter of 2023 stood at $1.1 billion, lower than 1.5 billion US dollars recorded in quarter 1 2022, indicating a decrease of 28%. Despite the decrease, capital importation into the production sector ranked second with 22% share of total investments, while the banking sector recorded the highest inflow of $304.5 million, representing 26.89% of total capital imported in the first quarter of 2023. Now, in recent months, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria had warned that the increasingly harsh business environment occasioned by high energy costs, lack of access to funding, multiple taxation, among others, had scaled down investment into the sector. According to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, biannual economic review investment in the manufacturing sector dipped to 145.59 billion naira in the second half of 2022, in comparison to 160.88 billion naira in the corresponding half of 2021, representing a decline of 15.29 billion naira, or 10%. Now, it further declined by 32.8 billion naira, or 18%, when compared with 178.39 billion naira recorded in the first half of the year. Manufacturing investment totaled 323.98 billion naira in 2022, as against 305.02 billion naira recorded in 2021. According to MAN, the decrease in investment during the period was mainly caused by government's debt issues, high borrowing and energy expenses, and weak consumption. Also in business, the federal government has announced that the 11 power distribution companies in Nigeria have applied for the review of their various electricity tariffs in order to incorporate the changes in the microeconomic parameters across the country on Thursday. It disclosed this through a notice published by the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. It added that the DISCOs also stated their reasons for the rates review were premised on factors affecting the quality of service, operations, and sustainability of the companies. Now, in the notice obtained by journalists in Abuja, the NERC stated that the application for rate review by the power firms was in line with the rules contained in the Electricity Act 2023. Recall that some power distribution companies had announced in June that there would be a hike in tariff projected to take effect from July 1, 2023. It was, however, observed on July 1, 2023 that the DISCOs did not raise the tariff, an indication that they had yet to get the approval of the power sector regulator. But on Thursday, the NERC announced that the power firms had applied for a review of their respective tariffs, though it described it as an application for rate review. All right, that's all we have for business. We will take a break. When we come back, we'll have entertainment and sports. Stay with us.